All right, guys, so today we're going to talk about quadratic applications. We kind of did this at the end of 3-4. We're just basically going to have word problems. We're going to be plugging in variables and then solving. So number one, or the first part says, an archer shoots an arrow into the air. The equation that describes the path of the arrow is h equals 17t minus 5t squared, where h is the height in meters and t is the time in seconds. So this is a lot like the one we did on Friday. It says how high is the arrow after 2 seconds. So when they say how high up is the arrow after 2 seconds, they're giving us that time is 2 seconds. So we're going to plug in 2 for t into our equation and solve. So I have h equals 17 times t, which in this case is 2, minus 5 times t, which is 2 squared. Now that's pretty much just to put it in your calculator problem. And if you do that, you should get 14 meters for your answer. So when they give you t, that's a pretty easy solution. Now number 2 is a little bit different. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this one. 2 and 3 are a lot the same. It says when will the arrow be 10 meters high? Now when they say when, it means they're looking for time. When they give us 10 meters high, that gives us h equals 10. So now we plug in 10 for h. So h equals, so I have 10 equals, then I have the equation after, 17t minus 5t squared. Now, that's not in the order I want. To solve for t, I'm going to have to use the quadratic formula. So I'm going to move my 5t squared to the other side and my 17t. So I subtract 17t and add 5t to both sides, 5t squared. So now I have 5t squared minus 17t plus 10 equals 0. Now it's set up in the order I need to put in my quadratic. I can see that a is 5, b is going to be negative 17, and that c is going to be 10. So let's plug in our numbers into our equation. So I have x equals, it's negative b, so negative times my b value, which is negative 17, plus or minus the square root of my b squared, negative 17 squared, minus 4, times my a value of 5, times my c value of 10, and all that is divided by 2 times a, which is 2 times 5. So guys, be careful when you're filling that out. Remember, on the quiz we're going to take tomorrow, you will have the formula. Be careful when you're plugging it in. That's the main problem that we're going to have, I think. So let's go ahead and solve what we can. Negative times negative 17 gives me positive 17, plus or minus. Now you need to take a second and put everything inside the parentheses or inside the square root into your calculator, exactly how it's written. Parenthesis, negative 17 closed parentheses squared, minus 4 times in parentheses 5 times in parentheses 10. If you do all that correctly, you should get the square root of 89. And all that's divided by 2 times 5, which is 10. Now, we have 89. That's not a perfect square, so we probably want to see if we can simplify it. We'd want to divide it by perfect squares. Well, 89 is not divisible by 4, 9, 16, 25, or 36. So nothing will go into it, so we're just stuck with that. So what we're going to do is we're going to write our 2 equations. We have 17 plus the square root of 89 over 10. And we have 17 minus the square root of 89 over 10. So all we have to do is put those in our calculators. My suggestion to you is that you put in the numerator, hit enter, then divided by 10. If you do 17 plus the square root of 89, hit enter, divided by 10, you should get 2.6, and that's seconds because we're talking about time. Now the other one's the same thing. 17 minus the square root of 89 divided by 10 gives us 0.8 seconds. And remember, it can happen twice because it's following an arc, and it actually just hits that height twice, once at 0.8 seconds, once at 2.6. Now number 3 is almost the exact same question. It says when will be 20 meters high. The only difference is now our h is 20. So I'm going to plug that in for h. I have 20 equals 17t minus 5t squared. Now, just like on the last one, I have to get it in the right order. So again, I'm going to add 5t squared to both sides and subtract 17t. If you don't like doing that all at once, feel free to do it in 2 steps. So minus 17t plus 5t squared. Now I have 5t squared minus 17t plus 20 equals 0. So the only thing that changed is my C value. I've still got A is 5, B is negative 17, and 20 is C. So let's fill out our equation again. So I have X equals negative times my B value, negative 17, plus or minus the square root of, I'm going to have negative 17 squared, minus 4, times our A value 5, times our C value 20, all divided by 2 times A, which is 2 times 5. So we can go ahead and clean that up. If you're watching this and doing it at the same time, you might want to take a second and try to do it yourself. Negative 17 times, or negative times negative 17 is positive 17, plus or minus the square root of. Now again, I want to try to put this all in at once, put it in exactly how we have it written underneath the square root. Do not use the square root. If you do that, you should get negative 111, and all that's divided by 40. Now, we got a negative inside our square root, which should make you happy. Once we have a negative inside the square root, we're done, because there are no real solutions. Now, if you think about that problem, like how would it have no real solutions? When did it get 20 meters high? Well, that would mean, since there are no solutions, that it never got to 20 meters high. So there's our answer, and we're finished with that. All right, guys, let's go ahead and go to the next one. It says, when will it come back to the ground? Now, we talked about this situation on Friday. If we want to know when it's on the ground, that means we know its height. Its height is 0. So it's going to work the same as the last two problems, except now h equals 0. So now I have 0 equals 17t minus 5t squared. Now, the last couple of times we've moved things to the other side, but there's nothing on the other side, so I can just rearrange, and I get negative 5t squared plus 17t equals 0. So we can use this to fill out our quadratic. I have A as negative 5. It's the worst A ever. I have B as 17, and since I don't have a C, that means it's equal to 0. It's kind of like I said, plus 0 out to the side. Now we just fill this into our equations, and we can get our answers. So we have X equals negative times our B value, which is positive 17, plus or minus the square root of B squared, so 17 squared, minus 4, times our A value, negative 5, times our C value, 0, all that divided by 2 times A, which is 2 times negative 5. Now let's go ahead and clean that up. I have negative times 17 is negative 17, plus or minus. Now, if you're not getting these calculator parts, you really need to be careful. Parentheses 17, close parentheses squared, minus 4 times negative 5 in parentheses times 0 in parentheses. And if you do that, you should get the number 289, and all that's divided by negative 10. I'm going to come up here to the side. Because 289 is one of our perfect squares, I can do negative 17 plus or minus. Now, if you get big numbers, guys, I told you to check them first. If you take the square root of 289, you get 17. I don't know why I have the square root sign still there. So plus or minus 17 divided by our negative 10. So we just need to throw our two problems into the calculator, and we've got our answers. So my first one's going to be negative 17 plus 17 over negative 10. Well, negative 17 plus 17 is 0, and 0 divided by anything is 0. So it's on the ground first at 0 seconds, which makes sense because that's where it started. The other problem is negative 17 minus 17 divided by negative 10. Negative 17 minus 17 is negative 34 divided by negative 10, gives me the answer 3.4 seconds. Need to label both our answers. So it's really not very bad. You're just filling out the equation. It's a lot of calculator problems. Be careful filling it out. Use your calculator right, and there's not a whole lot of excuse to miss it. All right, let's go to the last problem. Number 5. The area of a rectangular piece of cardboard is represented by the equation W times 2W plus 3 equals 9, where W is the width of the cardboard in feet. It says find the width. So we've been using quadratics, and it gave us an equation here, so maybe if we factor or distribute our W, we can see what we can do. So I have W times 2W plus 3 equals 9. So I'm going to distribute that W first, and I get 2W squared plus 3W equals 9. Now that's starting to look like quadratic formula, except for everything's not in the right order. So I'm going to subtract 9 from both sides. And I get 2W squared plus 3W minus 9 equals 0. Now it's in the form I need to solve for W. I have an A that is 2, a B that is 3, and a C that is negative 9. So let's fill out our equation. X equals negative times our B value, 3, plus or minus the square root of B squared, so 3 squared, minus 4 times A, which is 2, times C, which is negative 9. All of that divided by 2 times A, which is 2 times 2. Let's go to the next step. A negative times a 3 is negative 3. Plus or minus, again, we need to be putting these in our calculator, 3 squared, 3 in parentheses squared, minus 4, times in parentheses 2, times in parentheses negative 9, and you should get the number 81 divided by 4. Now, we should know what the square root of 81 is. We've seen that before. We have negative 3 plus or minus 9 over 4. Now we can break that up into our two equations and we can solve. So the first one is going to be negative 3 plus 9 divided by 4. The second one is negative 3 minus 9 divided by 4. So I can go ahead and try these out. I have negative 3 plus 9 is 6 over 4. And I'm going to go ahead and put that in my calculator because I would like, if I'm talking about an actual width, I probably don't want to say fractions. But if I put 6 over 4 in my calculator, I get 1.5 feet for a width. If I do negative 3 over 9, minus 9 over 4, I get negative 12 over 4, which is actually negative 3. Now, negatives can't be worked for distances, so negative 3 is not our answer. Our answer is 1.5 feet. So I hope that helps out, guys. If you have more questions, you just need to let me know.